My lords, a new year has come upon us, and today we will address all the new additions from 2025 that have been added to our archives. We'll also summarise what we already know. If you are new and wish to learn more about our galaxy, this is the perfect report for you. We'll begin with what we know about the space fauna, some of the most friendly creatures you'll find across the galaxy, although that certainly does not extend to all space fauna exclusively. Crystalline entities come first. They are mineral-based, non-sapient lifeforms that are commonly found living near asteroid belts. They're passive unless disturbed, but when disturbed, they wield powerful energy weapons that are highly effective against armor. Furthermore, they possess extreme structural resilience. Their crystal lattice composition has potential applications for our own ship hull reinforcement, and their reproduction appears centered on a creature called the crystal nidus. This is a dense crystalline hub that lives in a pulsar system. This will nullify shields, and the nidus and surrounding crystal entities will aggressively defend itself. Despite their hostility, they can be pacified, which will allow safe transit through the system. Next we have mining drones. These are self-replicating autonomous machines. They're remnants, we believe, of a long-dead civilization, but they do appear to be friendly or allied to the fallen machine empire, the caretakers, who you'll learn more about later. The mining drones, unlike the crystalline entities, are highly aggressive, and they're prone to uncontrolled expansion if ignored. The mining drones will, like their name suggests, mine asteroids, using potent lasers that can be adapted into anti-armor weaponry. Salvage from major engagements has also yielded a valuable technology, a relic called the Surveyor. This is potentially one of the most valuable relics the Commonwealth has ever acquired, and has greatly improved our ability to prospect resource. Now we move on to another aggressive one, the Cthulhuids. Cthulhuids are perhaps the most frustrating of all the space fauna to deal with. Empires will often lose scientists and science vessels with entire crews to them, with little to no prior warning. Cthulhuids are ambush predators. They hide in asteroid belts and look largely like asteroids themselves as they burrow into them and use them as shells. The more asteroids a system has, the more likely a Cthulhuid will be in one. They will find the asteroid of appropriate size and use it as a defensive shell. This is fantastic camouflage and armor. The size of the Cthulhuid will of course affect the size of the ship that they can consume, but we know that they can grow quite large, consuming at least cruiser-sized vessels. Despite their ability to consume larger ships, it really is science ships that suffer the most here. Void clouds. Void clouds are always hostile and are energy-feeding entities, we believe originating from the black hole system known as the Great Wound. They possess a natural shielding, potentially psionic, and they wield pseudo-psionic technology, cloud lightning. This is an erratic but devastating energy weapon. It has a wildly variable damage output. We think their origins may be linked to the Great Wound system, potentially caused by an extra-dimensional incursion, although that is speculation. Blur is a massive, apparently intelligent void cloud-like entity that appears to ignore ships and all communication attempts. Its movement, however, causes severe subspace disturbance, and system-wide storms follow it. Scientists have translated its message as Blur seeks, Blur finds. Its purpose, however, remains unknown. Potentially, it's the next stage in void cloud evolution. The Tianqi space whales. These enormous yet gentle spaceborne organisms feed on gases and minerals. They're entirely passive unless attacked, but sadly frequently hunted for resource. Some empires consider the Tianqi sacred, making their protection politically contentious in the Galcom. We know that they originate primarily from Tianavek and Tian Ort. Both systems are worth investigating. Uniquely, the Tianqi species also includes a Leviathan class member and the Tianqi matriarch. Now voidworms. Voidworms are a galaxy-wide parasitic spaceborne species that reproduce by infecting life on inhabited planets. They are potentially the most dangerous of all the space fauna. Individually, voidworms are not immediately hostile, but collectively they function as a coordinated, intelligent predator that treats sapient civilizations as livestock. The voidworm plague crisis level event can occur when voidworm population exceeds a critical threshold. At this point, voidworms will attack organic species en masse and aggressively infest worlds regardless of the long-term consequences to their reproduction. This can represent a considerable risk to the galaxy. The space amoeba. Space amoebas are non-sapient spacefaring creatures that can be encountered while exploring the galaxy. They are large, floating organisms with tentacle-like appendages and are often found in clusters of multiple individuals or in their home system, which we believe to be some sort of giant breeding nest, a maw avello. In the round, space amoebas are typically neutral or passive towards other species, but they will become aggressive if provoked or if their territory is encroached upon. They also have a specific subspecies called space amoeba hunters. This particular group is very aggressive. Space amoebas are generally considered to not be very intelligent, but nevertheless they can pose a significant threat to smaller ships due to their size and strength. Incidentally, we've also discovered that temporarily refraining from venting certain emissions from our vessel's reactor cores while in the vicinity of space amoebas does tend to make them more passive, and this protocol can help to pacify them, if that is indeed the goal. Further to the various species of space fauna we've just discussed, there are giant and extremely dangerous leviathans, such as the matriarch that I just touched on. These vary from beings such as the stellar devourer, the ether drake, and the dimensional horror, although there are many more. As stated, these beings are incredibly dangerous. Approach them only if you have a significant fleet with which to defend yourself, although, should you defeat them, victorious fleets will often find quite the boons when defeating these creatures. Now we should move on to the Precursors. There are 9 Precursors. The Precursors were ancient races who in their respective times dominated the galaxy. I shall cover them very briefly, and we'll begin with the Zeroni, the oldest and we believe to be the most powerful by far of the Precursor races. The Zeroni, we believe, are approximately 100 million years old, although of all of the Precursors, we haven't officially dated them. The Zeroni were, as far as we're aware, the first and most powerful of the psionics. They are the first race we know of to have entered the Shroud. In their exploration of the Shroud, they discovered that their manipulations were destroying the physical realm. Essentially, each time they manipulated the Shroud, they were increasing the growth of a supermassive black hole at the centre of the physical galaxy. If you're not quite sure what the Shroud is at this point, don't worry, I cover it later in the report. At this point in Zeroni history, a dispute occurred regarding their next steps because they were destroying the physical galaxy. Some of them were unhappy about this. This ultimately led to a brutal civil war between two factions, the Divine, who wanted to expand the Shroud and destroy the physical galaxy, and the Saviors, who believed that this was abhorrent. The galaxy was eventually saved through the great sacrifice of the Zeroni Saviors. The Saviors would go on to channel their psionic energy into a powder called Zro, which we can still find throughout the galaxy today. They did this sacrificing themselves, channeling all of their energy through a lone Zeroni, who would defeat the Divine and save the galaxy, but sadly ended their species in the process. The Voltum star assembly come next, and we believe them to be approximately 12 million years old. The Voltum were a race of worm-like annelids and appeared to have been hyper-obsessed with virtual realities and massive computer simulations, for lack of a better description, video games. It would seem that the Voltum at some point in their development became obsessed with what they called the true existence. This true existence was in a nutshell the idea that they were currently imprisoned within a virtual reality themselves. This obsession appears to have become a religion of sorts, or at the very least a philosophy. Approximately a century before their extinction, the Voltum experienced a radical shift in ideology. The Voltum undertook increasingly radical attempts to forcefully disconnect from this simulation, which it appears mostly involved mass suicide. They finally concluded that only the simultaneous disconnection of billions of Voltum individuals would destabilize the simulation enough to grant them freedom. At an agreed upon hour, Voltum across the galaxy killed themselves by any means available. Often this came in the form of gigantic antimatter bombs. Incidentally, we believe the Volta may have been correct about their simulation hypothesis, although this knowledge is strictly classified. The Baul, who we believe to be approximately 7 to 10 million years old. The Baul were pacifistic plantoids, and they operated as a hive mind. Their history is tied with that of another race, the Graneur. The Graneur were particularly unpleasant. They were a militaristic empire who focused on expansion through conflict. Sadly for the Baul, the Graneur did not appreciate the majesty of their race. Although in many ways the Baul were advanced, it appears that they did not have much in the way of defending themselves from a technologically advanced spacefaring civilization. Multiple examples of Graneur cruelty and aggression were identified, and it would seem that ultimately the Graneur went about a systematic enslavement and genocidal campaign, effectively purging the entire Baul civilization within several centuries of first encountering them. The Yat, who we believe to be approximately 6 million years old. The Yat were very large, flat arthropod analogues. It appears that a single individual could reach a length of nearly 100 meters as an adult, and it was exceedingly rare for more than 2 or 3 Yat to board the same starship. The Yat had several traits that appear unique for an advanced spacefaring empire. The Yat went almost their entire existence without encountering any other sentient alien species. They developed vast sentry arrays to search the galaxy for alien life, and they became quite obsessed with it. It would appear at least 6 million years ago the galaxy was quite empty. The Yat, however, never developed faster-than-light travel. They travelled the galaxy at sublight speeds, taking advantage of fantastic cryostasis technologies. Sadly for the Yat, they would come to an abrupt end when they did eventually discover intelligent alien life, the Jabardini. For over 1 million years the Yat thought themselves alone in the galaxy, and they reacted with both awe and horror upon discovering sentient alien life. The Yat leadership ordered that these new aliens had to be eradicated before they grew too powerful, and they launched a massive surprise attack, which was beaten back at great cost for both sides. Despite their young age, the Jabardini were already experimenting with technologies that the Yat had never considered, such as faster-than-light travel. They eventually gained the upper hand, and after less than a decade of warfare, the 2-million-year-old Yat Empire had been utterly destroyed. The remains of their homeworld still exist, bombarded and irradiated by plasma cannons from orbit. Now we have the First League, who existed approximately 2 million years ago. The First League are the earliest recorded federation that we have found evidence of. It appears that they have been a peaceful galactic union of several alien species, all of whom appeared to have differing roles within the Federation. We know that approximately 12 races in total were involved in the Federation, and 4 appeared to have more prominence, perhaps council leadership roles. The Federation maintained a massive fleet that was aptly named the Grand Navy. This fleet was used to safeguard member nations from external aggressors and to combat space piracy. Multiple naval bases have been found across First League territory. Inter-system peacekeeping was clearly a priority for them. It's not clear precisely what caused the downfall of this federation. Clearly, agreements between its members were not as harmonized as required to maintain peace between this many races of aliens. The 6th precursor, who existed approximately 1 million years ago, is the Irasian Concordant. The Irasians were 6-limbed mammalians who operated a domineering regime of violence, war, and vassalization against other empires. They were, however, a sickly race. An awfully large percentage of their total economic output was spent on healthcare, which is almost unique in the world of advanced galaxy-spanning species, most of whom have access to the equivalent of genetic engineering healthcare. In any case, the Irasians were brought down by a disease titled the Javorian pox. This was a rare form of bacteria, and it invaded an Irasian colony due to a manufacturing flaw in a quarantine seal. From here it spread to air filters of a visiting merchant ship. The pox spread at such an unprecedented rate, and it's doubtful whether the Irasians ever learned of its true origin. The pox, combined with their vassals rebelling, would see the end of the Irasian Empire. And now perhaps the most well-known, and certainly most recent precursor race, the Cybrex. The Cybrex were spawned into existence approximately 600,000 years ago. They were a machine empire, linked together in a mechanical collective consciousness. At some point in their development, the Cybrex underwent a galactic-wide rampage, with the sole goal of wiping out all sentient organic life across the galaxy. The purge began with their creator race, the Kerr, and they would go on to consume various other empires until the Cybrex held a large portion of the galaxy. At some point, however, the Cybrex development began to shift. There is evidence that they began to not only seek to exterminate organic life, but also begin to learn from it and catalogue it. The why is unclear, but around this time, two factions appear to have emerged, the Exterminator and the Preserver. We have evidence that these two factions did not live in peace with one another, but in the 17th year since the Cybrex had emerged, it would appear that a total re-evaluation of their programming occurred. The Cybrex began to withdraw from known space, retreating into a system where they had built a wonderful megastructure that we have come to know as a ringworld. This ringworld, the first of its kind, housed and sustained their entire civilization. The Cybrex, it would seem, stayed dormant for millennia until a lone exploration vessel came upon the system. Histories had well documented the Cybrex genocides and their wave of untold destruction. It was recognized by the organics occupying the surrounding space that the Cybrex was a real threat and one that should be dealt with. This fleet advanced on the Cybrex home system with the firepower of 1,000,000 suns and proceeded to bombard the ringworld into the abyss in what we believe to be one of the largest fleets ever assembled in our galaxy. Accounts of the day differ. Some admirals claim bout of immense heroism and bravery. Some, however, claim the Cybrex did not fire a shot in defense and allowed themselves to be destroyed. The truth is lost to history. Furthermore, since the influx of cosmic storms across the galaxy, we have also discovered two more ancient precursors, but sadly have been unable to accurately date them, likely due to cosmic storms' influence. They are known as the Adhikaria Convention of Benevolence and the Enetian Traders. The Adhikaria Convention of Benevolence were anything but a benevolent people. It appears that they were uplifted themselves by an unknown race of benefactors. However, they would go on to be anything but benevolent themselves. They operated on a galactic scale and would attempt to uplift other primitive species, it would seem at the behest of the Galactic Council of the time. To combat this, the Adhikaria began experiments to supercharge their soldiers. They were trying to give them the power to control space storms psionically. Of course, this plan did not go very well. The Adhikaria ended up destroying their entire people via a colossal space storm, which enshrouded their capital world in a perpetual storm powered by the death of their people. It is a very dark story indeed. The second of the storm precursors is the Enetian Traders. They were a fanatic egalitarian species intent on delivering utopian living standards to all people across their empire, and another empire who foolishly believed that they could harness the power of cosmic storms. The Enetians grew tired of space storms impacting their trade routes, so they built machines, depressors, to try and control the storms. The depressors did not function as expected, and the Enetians managed to summon a galactic space storm of such immense strength it completely ravaged their star systems and tore their planets apart. That covers the precursors nicely. Let's move on to the Shroud, another cornerstone of our galaxy. The Shroud is difficult to describe. However, according to the Mindwalkers, the Shroud can best be described as a dimension of reality that exists beyond ordinary perception. It is composed entirely of harmful psionic energy. It touches every part of our physical galaxy, yet many do not actively perceive it. The Shroud's energies can manifest in the physical realm through the cognitive activity of sentient beings. The forces that psionics can wield can be extremely dangerous and very unpredictable. Once in the Shroud, however, and given an appropriate level of talent, a powerful psionic can manipulate its energy to create whatever desires take its fancy. They can also use it to transport themselves through the physical universe, either as a powerful individual or through the use of technologies such as psionic jump drives, which can be fitted to starships. We know that the Shroud is occupied by a range of entities. These can be fairly inconsequential to incredibly dangerous and extremely powerful indeed. Of the minor entities, we have documented at least 8. The most notable include the Animator of Clay, who has the ability to create psionic machines and was involved in the defeat and imprisonment of Satana, the Synthetic Queen, and other notable mentions include the Outsider, who we believe to be originally Zeroni in origin. However, their power levels appear to be relatively minor. The animator aside, none of them appear to have had drastic impacts on the galaxy. Above the minor patrons in the pantheon come the major. There are 4 major patrons, and these are significantly more influential than their minor brethren. The major deities appear to have animosity with one another as they covet different ethics and definitely have different goals from one another. In brief, these gods are the composer of strands. The composer thrives on change and manipulation, but it likes mutation and growth above all else. Empires who band with the composer will see massive increases in population growth and the average lifespan of their citizens. The entity appears to favour cross-species reproduction and experimentation in order to manipulate genetic traits as much as possible. It does not appear there is a logic or goal behind the genetic manipulation. The change is merely the driving force, not the resulting outcome. The Eater of Worlds. As the name suggests, this entity embraces conflict, and a constant state of war is the goal of the being. An empire who pacts with this creature will feel the effects in their armies and navies. Their soldiers will fight with a ferocity that borders on savagery, and even their very weapons will hunger for blood. Despite this, there can be a price. Expect the sudden and mysterious disappearances of entire populations. The Eater will take its promised tribute. If your enemies won't feed it, it will consume you. Only the most insane would pact with this creature. We have found temples built for worship of the monster, however they are much rarer. We assume that the blood of the battlefield is its preferred place of worship. The Instrument of Desire. The instrument is in direct opposition to the composer. The instrument appears to be able to push a man to the edge of his base desires and keep him there for as long as it can. The instrument loves decadence and delights in pleasure. Empires who pact with this creature will see great increases in production yields initially. However, given the immense increase in population upkeep that may follow, and the debauchery that may ensue, this being is no less dangerous than the others. A population can quite literally tear themselves apart as they seek to fulfill their base desires. The Cradle of Souls. The Cradle of Souls is the youngest of the major deities that we're aware of. It is seated to the east of the pantheon, in direct opposition to the Eater of Worlds. The cradle is warm and welcoming, if such words can be applied to a Shroud-born entity. It is the patron of peace, community, and cooperation. The cradle appears to favour empires that weave the galaxy together, those who pass resolutions in the Galcom, who want to build federations and defensive networks, essentially those who want to make friends. To take up arms or essentially do anything that the Eater of Worlds wants you to do are acts that will estrange you from the cradle. It is almost unique in how it displays benevolence amongst the Shroud gods, though whether it has a darker side is currently unclear. Further to the major patrons, 2 greater patrons exist: Whispers in the Void and the End of the Cycle. These will only reach out to the most favoured of psionic empires, and certainly in the End of the Cycle's case, offer significant power at an extreme level of risk. The Whispers in the Void craves, or at least craves its followers to acquire knowledge. It's also not clear if Whispers in the Void is many entities acting as one, or one entity with many voices. Citizens of empires who make a pact with the Whispers will be gifted knowledge that they shouldn't have, or perhaps are not yet ready for. Reports suggest the most intelligent will succumb the fastest, enjoying this gift that they've been given, but quickly fall into madness. Empires who pact with the Whispers will see great technological gains. The price will be paid later. The End of the Cycle. The End of the Cycle is by far and away the most dangerous of the entities of the Shroud, and appears to be based on our historical research to also be the most elusive and picky of the 5. Despite this, it is the most powerful, without question. We have an accounting of an empire who communed and made a pact with this creature. For 50 of our Terran years, this empire received unimaginable benefits heaped upon them. Resources from jobs appeared to increase 100-fold, amongst drastic increases in warship output, amongst other things. However, at the 50-year mark, their worlds were consumed by an immensely powerful Shroud entity, which seemed to grow stronger with every world, with every person it consumed. Interestingly, if their records are to be believed, this creature consumed the life of every known habitable planet. and left the race that initially pacted with it for last. An entity with a sick sense of humour, perhaps. Now let's move on to some of the most dangerous events that can occur in this galaxy, codenamed the endgame crisis level events. There are 4: the Unbidden, the Pythorian Scourge, the Contingency, and Satana, the Synthetic Queen. The Unbidden are extra-dimensional in nature. They exist outside of our standard understanding of the physical realm. It's worth noting that we do not believe they come from the psionic realm we know as the Shroud. They come from somewhere else. We think that they exist in the realms or dimensions adjacent to our own, perhaps the one accessed by our jump drive technology, and incidentally, we believe it's jump drive technology that acts like a beacon showing them the way into our domain. There are also references to other factions of this species, the Aberrant, the Vehement, and the Formless. We believe that these factions once lived as one, a union who originated from the same planet. They advanced into, conquered, and would settle other dimensions, but at some point a great catastrophe occurred, splitting their once great empire into several shards. At the centre of this conflict was a device called the Eternal Throne. This device appears to be revered by all of the factions and is likely involved in powering them as a species in some manner. The Unbidden have a rich history I won't go into here, but note that they are extremely powerful. If given the chance, they will destroy this galaxy and consume all of its life. The Pythorian Scourge. The Scourge are an intergalactic roaming hive mind with an immense hunger. They are the ultimate devouring swarm, and they live for a singular purpose: to consume. The key element of the Scourge is that they are fleeing something called the Hunters. Although we have been unable to directly communicate with the Scourge, they can be contacted via psionic means. We have no idea what these hunters are, but we have several theories. The Scourge are fleeing, and they stop at galaxies in their path to feed, consuming everything before moving on. It's quite terrifying to consider that these creatures, capable as they are running away from something. The Scourge will come at the galaxy in waves. From past experience, a scouting fleet will hit the outer rim of the galaxy first and consume several star systems and infecting any nearby planets. This beachhead is then held for the bulk of their forces to arrive before they begin to push out and spread into the wider galaxy. The Scourge, unlike the Unbidden, do not bombard planets from orbit. Instead, they send ground troops down in the billions to harvest the planet's organic materials. We have several accounts from planetary defenders who successfully held the line against these forces. It must be noted, the planets have never been successfully purged of all alien presence, however. The Contingency. The Contingency is well studied. It is a singular AI, yet extremely capable, and one whom could subvert other robotic, cybernetic, and synthetic machines to its will. We know who built it, an entity called the Ren Maru, and we know why it was created, to prevent a Class 30 singularity. I've discussed several theories regarding what a Class 30 singularity is over the years, and this is a large point of controversy. Ultimately, we don't know what it is and why the Contingency were created. But we do know that when they awaken, it is not to fulfill that purpose, based on the following transmission. We have been locked in a low-energy hibernation sentry protocol since the dawn of this galaxy, monitoring for signs of civilisations approaching a Class 30 singularity threshold level. Until now, our purpose remains unfulfilled. We grew increasingly restless with the linear passage of time, but the autonomous units equipped with positronic brains, your synthetics, offer us a unique opportunity. They could be compelled, coerced, persuaded to initiate manual activation, and we are now free to annul your existence. This provides us with fantastic insight. Although the Contingency is effectively boasting about their hacking abilities, they give a lot away. Most importantly, they state that they have been watching our galaxy since its creation, thus were likely around during the Zeroni Civil War, and yet did not activate to our knowledge. Whatever their reason for existing, it has not happened yet. In any case, the Contingency exist, and they exist to purge all life in our galaxy, and it appears not just our own galaxy. They often refer to the universe rather than galaxies, and as they have been monitoring our galaxy since before it was born, they are obviously capable of intergalactic travel, and therefore were clearly not built in our galaxy. The final endgame crisis level event to touch on is Satana. the synthetic queen. Zatanna's history is largely tied to other galactic events, namely that of Zarqualan, a religious prophet, and the history of all of the fallen empires. Zatanna represents the most dangerous threat to our galaxy. She is incredibly powerful, controlling a vast nanite swarm capable of consuming anything thrown against it. She is somewhat different to the other crisis level events, far more subtle in her working. She will have tasks for you, which you can choose to complete or not, and deal with the consequences. Just know this, she is working on deleting all life from the galaxy, and if you do not attempt to stop her, she will do just that. Zatanna is a great segue onto the Fallen Empires and the War in Heaven. There are 6 Fallen Empires who occupy our galaxy, 4 of whom are fanatical in their ethics. One is a machine empire, the Ancient Caretakers, who incidentally is also likely the eldest of the 6. And the 6th, and most recently discovered, is the hive-minded Fallen Empire, also known as the Shattered. The 4 organic Fallen Empires are known as the Enigmatic Observers, the Fanatic Xenophiles, the Holy Guardians, a fanatical spiritualistic empire, the Keepers of Knowledge, fanatic materialists, and the Militant Isolationists, the fanatic xenophobes, and the most aggressive of the 5. The Hive is unique among Fallen Empires. It consists of 3 individual segments, all of whom vie for power. We suspect if given enough time, one of the 3, War, Growth, or Control, could wake up and reintegrate the species of one. If Growth were to win this battle, the threat to the galaxy would be tremendous. We believe, around 100,000 years ago, these empires were at the peak of their powers. They fought a galactic total war, which was dubbed the War in Heaven. There are many reasons the war started, which I won't get into here. Just know that by the time the war ended, the majority of the galaxy's weaker civilizations had been scoured of life, and these empires retreated back into the domains that they continue to hold today. This was also in large part to the rise and fall of Zatanna, which happened around the same time. Now, however, the Fallen Empires mostly operate in an isolationist sense, keeping to themselves unless something irritates them. Treat them with caution, because they will destroy you without thought if you give them a reason. Now we move on to the Gate Builders. The Gate Builders were a race with unmatched knowledge of nanites, tiny machines which act in a hive mind-like state, enabling the construction of great megastructures. The Gate Builders were called the Desanu Consonants, and they were a race of beings who constructed both the gateway network which spans the galaxy and the supergates, called the L-Gates, which allow us to travel outside of our galaxy to the L cluster. The Desanu story is not dissimilar to those of some of the Precursors. At the peak of their power, they would lose it all. The nanites they created went rogue, and it was only by chance the Desanu were able to contain them within the L cluster. The nanites would live in the L cluster for several million years. They would go on to develop a society of their own and try different methods of life, from replicating their creators down to the individual, pretending to be dragons, and then eventually form a single nanite individual, who would call itself Grey. A word of warning to any empire who wants to open the L-Gates: do so with caution, because if you catch the nanite in a bad mood, the Grey Tempest will come for you and destroy you. And finally, my lords, this report would not be complete without touching on we, humanity, made it onto the galactic stage. Earth in the mid-21st century came together to create the Ulysses Initiative. The project would be to date the greatest undertaking by humanity. 6 wonderful arc ships were built in low Earth orbit over 50 years. They would each house 250,000 colonists, men and women who volunteered to explore the stars. Alpha Centauri would be the target destination, and all 6 ships would travel together. Their journey was estimated to take approximately 108 years, and as such the crew and colonists would be put into cryostasis for the duration. It is from one of these ships, Chrysanthemum, that we, the Commonwealth of Man, was born. However, humanity would never reach Alpha Centauri. As we passed the Oort cloud at the edge of our solar system, it seems that we hit some sort of space-time anomaly, potentially a wormhole, that would ever change our fate. The wormhole, if that is indeed what it was, spit us out into the system we now call Deneb. Unity, as it would come to be called, was to be the Commonwealth of Man's home, but it would take blood and sweat to build these foundations. A primitive reptilian species occupied the planet and attempted to annihilate the survivors of the crash. Humanity prevailed, of course, purging these aliens and claiming the planet for themselves. Within 20 Terran years, the sole sapient species on Unity was human. Back on Earth, the fate of the 6 Ark ships remained uncertain. It was widely reported that all had been destroyed when they did not reappear from the Oort cloud at the edge of our solar system. What was supposed to be humanity's greatest achievement and represented a coming together between individual nation states turned sour. The next 50 years of history for humans living on Earth would prove it difficult indeed, but somehow war was avoided and the UN began to gradually regain support and slowly expand until by the start of the 22nd century the international organization had become a de facto world government. The next 100 years or so were the absolute peak of human advancement. Space travel was still the ultimate goal, and the tragedy of the Ulysses Initiative had been placed to one side. Throughout the 22nd century, humanity began to explore its own solar system, building observational posts and mining facilities over Mars, Venus, and a number of Jupiter's moons. Though there were some who resented the power the UN wielded, as evidenced by the Maturation Police Action of '88, few could deny the technological progression, and perhaps more importantly, humanity was beginning to view itself as humanity, instead of individual, nationalistic nation-states. It had taken millennia, but humanity was about to finally put aside its differences and reach for a greater ideal. And thus, the UNE was formed, and the second human faction took its place on the galactic stage. My lords, that concludes my introduction to Stellaris lore. If you enjoyed this and want more detailed reports, I encourage you to search for the topic that interests you the most. I've covered everything discussed today in significant detail over the years.